Hey, all right. Welcome. Hello. So, this is not Tune Up Tuesday. In fact, it is Wednesday. It is Hump Day. But I had an idea. I want to give a try. I'm going to try something new. I thought, what could my next short-term project be? What that would give me energy, right? Because Tune Up Tuesday actually gave me energy. It was fun to do. And then I had an idea. What I could do was I could do a video version, a live video version of one of my podcast topics. So I have a podcast called Symbol Athletica on all the favorite platforms out there. And what I thought I'd do on some type of frequency, I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means weekly or monthly or whatever, I don't know. But here's the good news. When I was trying to think of what could I do on a fairly consistent basis that would be useful to me and maybe useful to others, fun to do, and where I was ensured the ability to sustain it, right? And then I thought, I could just do some video versions of concepts shared on my podcast, because I have plenty of podcast episodes now. I think it's almost 100. I think it's 99, maybe 100. Very close to with that, whatever it is. So today is going to be my first attempt at doing that. See how it feels. The interesting thing about revisiting topics, at least for me, because I speak unscripted, is that although I know what the topic is going to be, I never exactly know how it's going to be, how it's going to come out, right? How I'm going to put it together in the moment. And in many times, especially with live audiences, I put things together in a moment that are actually eye-opening to me, insightful to me. So I am as much of a beneficiary of the effort as the people I intend to try to share with. So that's been one of the things. And that's one of the things I miss most. Jeremy James, man, I'm going to miss you, brother. You are part of we're a part of my Vegas infrastructure, man. We're going to go listen to on those nice, not so hot summer nights. One man band. I hope you're going to introduce yourself to those people down there in Tampa or Orlando, one of the two. Either which are going to be amazed at your ability, brother. Amazed. But who knows what the future holds, brother? We didn't know we were going to meet the first time. So we definitely don't know if we're going to meet a second time. One of my good friends is a doctor down there in Tampa. If you ever start doing gigs or whatever, let me know. I'll let him know what's going on, and he can come witness the experience, buddy. Witness the experience. All right, so here's what I'm going to do, guys. So what I thought I'd do is, I think I'm going to do a video version of randomly selected topics that I've done on my podcast, because that would just be fun, and they're fun ideas and fun things to talk about, and lots of people are finding them useful. The podcast is kind of taking off now. It's all over the place. I think 11 countries, a lot of people tuning in. But so this will also give me a different medium of that content, right? So I have the audio on my podcast, and now I have a video version. So here's the first ever video version of a Symbol Athletica podcast conversation, right? So, all right. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to Symbol Athletica. We are the brand of the purpose-driven. We stand for people that have made the decision to stand for something. And yes, we do have the audacity to believe that we can be driven towards a destiny of our own design. And we hope that you are badass enough to be a part of our tribe. That's my podcast intro. First time I did it on video. All right, so guys, today I want to talk about something this actually is an example of what I just talked about 5 minutes ago, of how I put things together live and in the moment one day that completely lit me up. It was very unexpected and insightful, and it became the way I talked about this concept from that point forward. It's been a few years now. And I'm going to call this Fear ReImagined. Fear ReImagined. So, and it's a different way to look at fear. It's a different framework for fear. And I talk about fear quite often in my podcast because I happen to believe that fear is probably the single biggest thing we all, right? I'm speaking to us all. We all have to deal with that as the biggest determinant in what we do, what we don't do, where we go in this thing called life. So fear is always there in the background. It's like the omnipresent background soundtrack to anything, especially anything worth doing. So I talk about fear a lot from a lot of different ways. So that's what this Fear Reimagined conversation is going to be about. So here's a background to the idea. Here's a backdrop to the idea. There's been a lot of research done on the connection between perception and cognition, right? Perception meaning our ability to take in sensory input through our senses, sight, smelling, touch, feeling, taste, and cognition being how we process information in the brain. And there's some interesting research done on the relationship between cognition and perception. And a very cool book, and I'm going to just jump to kind of some shortcuts so I don't keep you on here long, right? But there's an interesting book called Blank, and in the book called Blank, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell is the author of that. Man, you guys are testing my memory right now, doing all this real-time stuff. I think his name is Malcolm Gladwell. I think he wrote a book called Blank. But anyway, one of the concepts in the book called Blank is this idea of thin slicing, where they give a lot of examples in the scientific research that supports the idea that we as humans, our brain is so powerful that we come to know things. We come to know things about our environment, about the world we live in, before we understand that we know those things. It's a real interesting concept. So it falls into that gray area of what we call gut feeling or intuition, or precognition, if you want to take it that far out. But we have the ability to kind of know things long before, in some cases, we understand that we actually do know things, right? So our brain is that powerful. So we can, and they do some great examples in a book where like one of the examples they give in the book is where they have people, they have experiments where the scientists have cards and the person being experimented on, you just trying to guess what cards are coming up, and then they have to give a gut feeling about which deck of cards has been stacked, right? Which deck is not just a normal deck, it has been tampered with. And there are 52 cards in a deck, right? So somebody can do the math, and you gamblers out there can probably come up with a number that it would probably take to realize that something's wrong with the deck. But when they do this experiment, people have an instinct that something's wrong with the deck way before the actual mathematical number required to know conclusively that something's wrong with the deck. Their instincts are right, but they don't even realize that. They just psychologically test these people, and in the psychologically testing, they come to realize that these people could tell something was wrong with that. So that's just a real quick example of thin slicing, and that's a very real quick example of what I mean by understanding, coming to know things long before we understand that we know these things. So that's just the background to my concept for today, but that's going to help it gel for you. So here's another independent thing, right? I mash up a lot of ideas in my metaphors, right? So it makes it fun for me. It's like brain candy. So a lot of people know, I hope you know, or maybe you don't know, you're about to learn something new about bats. And I know a little something about bats, being that, well, you know who I am, right? But bats navigate. Bats are blind almost. They have very bad vision, but they navigate via, it's like radar, right? They have radar out there where they can see what's going on. And as crazy as bats fly and as fast and as crazy as they do and catch those insects on the fly, it's all done by radar, right? So that's the idea of a living organism having radars. I believe dolphins have sonar. They do the same thing underwater. Radar in the air, sonar underwater, right? Okay, so now we have two concepts. You got to stay with me. I hope you guys had your coffee. I'm on nootropics, so I fire on like 12 cylinders, right? So it might get a little fast, but stay with me. So we got the idea of thin slicing, knowing before you understand that you know, and we got the general idea of how radar works. With me? Okay. Here's what here's the idea. Here's the interesting way to to look at fear. One more concept. So this is going to be a three-way mashup. So here's the one more thing I need you to get your mind around. We're going to talk about reimagining fear, but we're not going to talk about major phobias, not fear of flight, fear of snakes, fear of dragons, whatever it is you're afraid of. We're going to talk about minor fears, the type of fears that we deal with on a weekly basis or more, on a monthly basis or more. The type of little minor fears that happens through the course of a regular person's regular life, right? That we still have to deal with. And in fact, many people, we have a very common thing we talk about when we feel this uneasiness, right? We feel this queasiness in our gut, right? This uneasiness before we need to do something that we're a little fearful of, like public speaking or going in talking to a raise or holding that new persons of interest hand for the very first time. So some of us feel this uneasiness or this nervousness that we refer to as butterflies, right? We feel these little fluttering in our gut, right? And there's a lot of science behind why that is and how that's attached to thin slicing and all these, your nervous system and, you know, all that stuff is more accurate than people probably haven't really known. But, no, so we got three concepts, right? We got knowing before you know. We got the idea, the concept of a radar, and we have the ideas of butterflies, right? Let's just call these bat wings, little bat wings, just to keep the metaphor friendly and fun for me. Keep it mind candy, right? Keep me interested. All right, so now, here's what I think is a cool idea. When most people get butterflies, most people, if you tried to analyze what was going on, most people would say, well, they feel nervous about this thing that's about to happen, and most people assume that they feel nervous because something bad might happen, right? You might get embarrassed, it might go the wrong way, something might go wrong, you might get hurt, but for whatever reason there is, you feel butterflies. And butterflies are common regardless of your level of expertise. Champion fighters feel butterflies walking into a ring every single time. That's part of what's required to make them champions. You with me? Okay, so what if this though? What if our brain was so magnificently brilliant and complicated and fast that when something's about to happen, we feel this warning, because it's a radar that something about to happen, but it's warning us that, because it can connect all those dots like through thin slicing, right? What if the radar, the warning mechanism is that if it's afraid that we're not going to do the thing, and by not doing the thing, we're going to miss out on something huge. Let me let that sink in a little bit, because it's almost 180 degrees backwards from what most people associate fear and uneasiness and butterflies with in terms of an event. What if it wasn't that something bad might happen? What if the fear mechanism that kicks in, the warning, the radar that kicks in, is this advanced radar system telling us that, wow, it's nervous. We're nervous because the chances are we're not going to do the thing because we're nervous. And if we don't do the thing, we don't get this great thing on the other side of it. Think about that. And it's not that far-fetched, right? Because most research will show you that, like, public speaking is one of the most common fears, at least in North America, or at least in the country, right? Almost everybody has some degree of fear of public speaking until they get beyond it. But they also, at the same time, will tell you one of the most valuable assets you can have in terms of a personal skill set is the ability to speak, right? So you can kind of see how these things might go together, right? So when you feel that opportunity, that meeting that's coming up, or that chance to stand up and speak in front of that group, and, you know, part of you might be saying, oh, I feel the butterflies, I feel the little flickering, the little bat wings fluttering, right? And the common non-Batman way, the non-Jedi way, right? The non-Jedi way to look at that was oh man, I don't want to do that. I'm nervous about something bad would happen if I get up to speak. Jedis know, oh, if I don't get up and speak, I'm going to miss out on what's the other side of me being able to do that thing. This is a powerful reframing of this thing we call fear. Powerful reframing of this thing we call fear. If every time you get this little queasiness, uneasiness, that means that because of whatever reason, the way you see the world, there's significance you've assigned to this event that's about to happen. And I'm trying to tell you, what if you just flipped that uneasiness to be that if you're about to miss out if you give into that fear and not do the thing. You're about to miss out. Radically different way to look at fear. Minor fears, right? Butterflies flickering in your stomach. And the reason why I came up with the reason why this idea came to me, I believe, is because what I used to always say when I talk about butterflies, right? And when I talk about this feeling of butterflies, I talk about it as something that's also common to us, and that most people in the course of their daily lives do things to avoid situations that create those butterflies. But at the same time, most of the people who we look up to, who we follow, whose picture we put on our kids' wall, they not only deal with butterflies on a consistent basis, they search situations that create butterflies. Entertainers are searching for the next chance at a new song that could be great or it could bomb. Sports figures feel this every time they go into the arena of competition. Entrepreneurs feel this on a daily basis, right? I'm sure some of you could probably say an amen on that one, right? Or standing up on that one, because that's the world we live in, the world of the unknown. And I'm here to offer you for your consideration that the way we frame fear makes fear either an obstacle or a potential tool. Because if you buy this little crazy idea, this Jedi way of looking at fear as being a radar of something that you must do to get the great thing, and the reason why you must do it, you don't know that you know yet because of the whole scientific thing we talked about in the thin slicing. You know that if you did this public speaking thing, your life would be better. You know that if you went in and walked for that raise or tried to get that project, you know that if you held this person's hands and there was in fact chemistry, your life could take a radical turn for the best, right? You might know these things before you know that you know them. And your radar system is saying, oh, we know you're going to be nervous, but don't bail. Don't jump out the plane. Don't fold your hand. Don't give in to the minor fear. Drive through the minor fear. See what's on the other side. Right? Interesting ideas. I heard a guy speak once. Real guy that had really successful in life. So successful, and he's really big on personal growth and development and mindset and all this stuff that I like so much, right? But he was really big into that stuff too, right? And he was so successful that one day he reached out to a university professor whose specialty was some psychology shoot off or offshoot. But his specialty became the area of human performance. Human performance. He's like he was an authority on human performance. And he called up the professor or communicate with the professor. How much would it cost for him to come spend a weekend with him and his family? Check this out as a lifestyle. Come visit him and his family. Stay in town for the weekend. All expenses paid on him, plus whatever the fee needed to be negotiated. Just to have a conversation with his family about the insight and perspective he has on human performance. Whatever his takeaway was, whatever he wanted to talk about, he just wanted an expert in the field to come sit with your family. First of all, I thought that was mind-blowing to be able to do that kind of random thing for your family. That's lifestyle right there, right? No wonder the guy's so freaking successful, because he probably keeps doing things like this. But anyway, so the guy did that. The professor came out and he was telling us about it, but he said, the professor was talking about all these studies and all these different things he had done and the stats and all these stuff. And then he said, but what's really interesting? This is the expert talking to the family. And it was just kind of a matter-of-fact thing. He said, what's really interesting, though, is that because he helped people deal with fear and overcome fear, and he helped them through a bunch of different modalities, hypnosis, therapy, all kind of stuff, right? And he said, one thing he noticed, though, was that outside of helping people overcome their fears, once they overcame a fear, their lives took off. Their lives took completely radical turns in some great ways. Like because he realized this when he would follow up with people to see if his intervention persisted, right? If it stuck, like if the person that got over the fear of flying was still able to fly 2 years later, that kind of thing, right? So, but what he found was he'd reach out and say, hey, yeah, are you able to fly? And they would say, yeah, that fear is still, yeah, no fear of flying. But you know what? Since the last time we spoke, I got out of this bad relationship. I'm doing this. My business is booming. I got another thing on the side. And he said that became a story over and over and over and over. And his unprovable at the time, but this is 15 years ago, maybe he took the time to prove it, but his unprovable theory at the time was that when we overcome fears, we grow in extraordinary and unrelated ways to that fear. People were rocking it in ways outside of their overcoming their fear of flying or dogs or whatever it is that helped them. It's just something about doing that changes who you are at your core at deep levels. So I want to throw that in as an aside, just because it's in this big conversation of fear, and it's in a mild way, I'm encouraging you to consider doing that or to go down a path that might lead you to do that, because I'm trying to get you to embrace the idea of not avoiding these minor fears, not avoiding butterflies. I'm actually trying to encourage you to embrace the idea of pursuing these butterflies, to actually sit down and by design go after things and situations that will, in advance, are going to generate butterflies, because that seems to be the path to most things and places we call valuable. And I'm going to end with kind of a way I summarized it creatively, but in a way that I think is creatively truthful, right? And I call this little word smithing. It's not a poem, but it's not just regular talk either, right? But I called it the fragile wings of humanity. The fragile wings of humanity. And what I'm talking about are these little flutterings we get when we are in the presence of something that creates these minor fears. Those fragile little wings. And my belief is these fragile little wings are the secret to us growing big wings, right? It's the fragile wings of butterflies, those fragile wings of butterflies that will lead some people down a path that they grow their own wings of hawks, and they becomes the warriors that protect us. It's the fragile wing of butterflies that will lead some people down the path that allows them to grow their wings of owls. And they're going to be the wise ones, the ones that teach us. It's the fragile wings of butterflies and the pursuit of those butterflies that will lead other people down the path that affords them the chance to grow their wings as eagles and lead us. It's the fragile wings of butterflies that will allow some people to go down the path that allows them to grow their own wings of doves. And those people will demonstrate the power of compassion and love. It's the fragile wing of butterflies, as fragile as they are, that might be the first ingredient for humans to grow their wings of capability and make this world a better place. So my friends, that's my idea for today. This has been the first ever video form of Symbol Athletica podcast. It's a redo. So what I think I'm going to do is just randomly pick some podcast episodes that have ideas that I either really like to talk about or really need to hear out loud myself, or I think it might be something you never heard, like today's. I don't think many people have looked at fear in quite that way with the reverse radar thing. I think there's something to that. So, my friends, I don't know what the schedule of this is going to be, but this is something I can do on a regular basis just because I have a podcast out there with plenty to pull from. So this was an experiment to see how I feel about it. And I usually go by the feedback I get if it's something that I think people find valuable, because that's kind of what I'm trying to do. Trying to have a good time, trying to do something that feeds me in ways I need to be fed, but try to do it in a way that I think serves others. And I try to share things with people that I find useful, or I wish I would have been told or had the convert that somebody would have had that. I shared that perspective because that's mostly what it is. That I wish I would have had some of this perspective, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. It would have been transformative in the path I chose to take, right? Because we are always in this multi-path crossroad. We just don't know it. There's always a multiple choices we can make. We just narrow them down to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but there's always multiple choices. But a lot of times we need a perspective change to see those other options we have right that lay right at our feet. Sometimes we need that perspective boost, help. All right, guys. So thank you very much. Hey, Kim. Hey, Mike. How are you guys? Gregory. I like that, Gregory. You are so right. It is all in. It's funny because you say there are 2 types of fears: ones that protects you and other that holds you back. And a lot of, I would say, the interesting idea for me to think about is what determines which is which and why and how, right? It's all about that. I'm always trying to find ways to create technology. And every time I say that, people think because I'm in technology and I have tech companies, I mean digital technologies. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about a systematic way of doing something, an approach. And an approach in the way I think, an approach in the language, an approach in behavior. These are all technologies that we can use. And by technologies, I mean transferable. I mean, what can I create? Once I understand how something works, how can I turn that into a tool that not only serves me, but that I can transfer to others as well? Because that's the greatest, in my opinion, that's the greatest example of a useful insight, is to find something that you can turn into a useful tool that you can literally give to another human being, right? So that means it can't be dependent upon your uniqueness, whatever that is, right? Hey, Kate. Hey, Kate. Happy half birthday week. I know you're born the same week I am, so this is our half birthday week. Or was that last week? We're in the zone. We're in the zone somewhere. Hey, Kim. Welcome to the first ever Symbol Athletica podcast video. I might call it Symbol TV. Symbol Athletica TV or something like that. I don't know. I'll come up with something if I stick to it. All right, guys. Hope you found something useful. I'm going to jump back into my day. I've been on a roll lately. I got more going on, but I think it started when I started. You eat your own lunch, right? So once I started encouraging others to pack their plate, to overfill their plate, to do these consistent mind things and all these drills I've been encouraging people to do, and all those tune-up Tuesdays and things I've been doing, my whole world is just like somebody that pushed the turbocharge button and nitrous oxide kicked in. I got more going on. I got more stuff packed into my days now. I have the multiple businesses. I got my podcast. I got my side hustle. Adding this. I'm working out good. I'm on a thing. Today's gonna be another 2-a-day. This will be my second week of 2-a-days. I do those for periods. I don't do those forever, but I go through these little zones where I'm just after it, right? Just after it. Ebb and flow. I'm ebbing right now. I'm in the flow too. Maybe we'll talk about flow. A lot of stuff I can talk about. If you have if you are a podcast listener and you have a favorite one that you would like me to redo video style, shoot me a note. Shoot me a private message, because they always come out different. None of this stuff is scripted. The concepts are what they are, but it's always in the moment, right? So there's always something in the moment. It's always different, and that's part of why I do these, because I sometimes a difference or an education to myself. I learn too. There's something magical in the moment for sure. All right, guys, take care. Have a great week. Happy hump day.